Even the night before marriage, it was hard. She was saying, you know, this is not for me. I don't want to marry.
Marriage wasn't healthy. It was very cultic.
How did you feel when those words were said over you? Like, you must marry this individual.
This is against my will.
The truth is, I was in a relationship about 2 years before I met Lyn. She kind of dumped me. She pretty much told me that I really wasn't enough because I wasn't physically enough. So she said to join a gym. So I went to the gym and this to meet this criteria of being a man.
Yeah.
And then she eventually says, you know what, no. And how that whole thing fell apart was just very painful and very hurtful. Mm-hmm. So the idea of now Lyn saying to me, listen now, I don't want to marry you, brings back this old rejection process to me and the shame of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When I met Lyn, I was in love with the idea of marriage, but was I ready for marriage? Was I prepared for marriage? I'm going to say no.
What's going on, world? You already know what time it is.
It's your girl, Nikki.
And your boy, Dean. And you are officially tuned into the BKBQ podcast, where we highlight Black love, Black excellence, and Black legacy, man. Let's get it. Let's go. Baby girl, baby girl. How you feel? How you feel today?
I am feeling great. Today is an amazing day. We have so many exciting things to talk about today, and I'm so excited to be here with you. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good, man. Today's going to be an actually special episode.
Yeah.
We have two very special guests that are very dear to us, guests that have had tremendous impact on our lives, believe it or not. We got Lyn and Alton in the building today, guys. Coming up. Lyn and Alton have been married for 29, 30. Was this year 30? Almost 30 years. So
wow.
We got a lot to dive into today because we've been married. How much years have we been married?
5
5 years. It's not even a scratch. Not even a scratch. But honestly, like it's important that we surround ourselves with people that have been through life, been places that we have yet to be. And we're just gonna get a lot of wisdom today, guys. I hope you guys are ready to dive into this conversation. It's gonna be an amazing conversation. If you are a person that is married or you aspire to be married, this is the conversation that you want to listen to. So without further ado, let's get into this. So guys, we've been married almost 30 years. Where did it begin? Like, yeah, you're here sitting here at year 30, but where did it start? Like, how did you guys become an item? Like, what did that look like?
OMG. You start.
I get the start. You know, we talk about, and I think earlier on in the year, maybe last year, we had to do a Valentine's couples kind of thing. And, you know, I get asked the same question, you know, how many years you've been married? And I think it was 29 back then. And I go 29 minus 28. Make it make it 1 year.
Yeah.
You know, because, you know, I'm finally, you know, and every year, the more you grow in, the time goes, is I find that is the less I know and the more I want to know.
Yeah.
Right. And so the idea, even though we're 29 going on 30 years old, you know, in marriage, I find that there is this unveiling of who I marry, and you're realizing that, man, I didn't know anything.
Wow.
You know, and so you know, so it's for me, it's always at year one.
Yeah.
You know, it's always at year one.
It's a never-ending journey.
It's a never-ending journey.
Never-ending journey.
But we kind of met, I don't know, call it the fluke, or, you know, or she being in the right place at the wrong time. I don't know. But we kind of, you know, we met in college, and, you know, we were in the library studying together, and somebody decided to make this space a more like having a telephone conversation.
Yeah, they were having a loud conversation in the library. Yeah.
Yeah, and so unbeknown to me, I stood up, she stood up at the same time, and we were just on the other side of the study desk.
Yeah, the desk.
Yeah. And so we kind of looked at each other like, what? You know? And
referring to the guy who was talking real loud.
Yeah.
Because I was
Like,
like, you know, shy and everything and wanted to tell him to take it down a notch.
Right.
So he was like,
Alton stepped up.
Yeah, he was like looking at him. You're like, you know, and we're like, who is this dude? Is this not the library?
Exactly.
And then we took it from there.
Yeah, and then so we, you know, I finished studying and doing what I was doing. So, I left, and somehow we end up again seeing each other in the hallway of at the college there, and began to talk. We sat, had a conversation for about 3 hours, and
let me just interject. That conversation for 3 hours, he had a car, and I didn't. And when he was finished talking, he's like, "Okay, see you later."
No. Whoa. No. Let's just back this up.
Give us the backstory, Alton. Give us the backstory.
No. That's not how I remember that. That's not how I remember. I remember taking her to the station to get the bus.
In his car.
Yeah, but
okay,
without fairness,
it's a little better.
Without fairness, I admit, looking back now, I'm thinking, you know what? Yeah, dude, you should have taken her home. But I didn't. So yeah, I'll own that one. So then, you can jump in here at any time.
He fell in love.
and the rest is history.
And the rest is here we are.
Right.
Right. But it was a process. I mean, we we started off, we were going to a church at the time that probably wasn't the safest place for marriages. Yeah. And so our introduction to marriage wasn't like healthy. It was very cultic.
Okay.
And it was a thus saith the Lord, and marriages were arranged, and counseling wasn't a part of it. And you just showed up looking like church people, but you had no idea what you were getting into. And I think for us, we have learned, if we were to give anybody any advice, like, starting off now, or even in the middle of the mess, we would say, get honest. Yeah. Get honest. Have honest conversation. Get to know the humanity in your partner. Get to know their story, and be honest about it. And when we ask people to be honest, we also have to create grace and space to hear what that is all about. Because a lot of times we'd be like, yeah, you can tell me the truth. And when the person's like, well, I have this problem and that, and you're like, oh, so I don't like that kind of truth, right? So for us, we got into marriage very, very quickly because of the unhealthy cultic environment, religious. And it's only when we left that we realized that we needed a lot of wise counsel. Do you know what I mean? Whether in a therapeutic sense where we're seeing a marriage counselor, or even sit in, with other married couples that had done the time, done the work, and become a part of a community where the goal was healthy marriages and healthy families. And I think that those honest conversations, good counsel, I think would be the advice if we were to give somebody, 30 years, looking back, we would say, because everything is figure outable. Would you say?
For guys, I would advise if you're thinking about getting married, there's a scripture that talks about prepare your work in the field first. Then you build your house. And what that is saying is that take every proper precaution, prioritize, organize, make sure that you lay a foundation for your own life first. And Lyn is talking about earlier on about honesty, and be willing to be in a place to bear the weight of whatever each other is going to be share, are willing to share with you. And that sometimes may not necessarily what we want to hear, the truth, right? Because had I paid attention to a lot of those truths that she was speaking to me earlier on in our relationship, even when we were courting, because the truth is, she didn't really want to marry me, Yeah.
What's going on, guys? If you are enjoying this episode, I'm going to need you to stay on this episode all the way until the end, because we have a very special guest. We have a psychotherapist, Roxanne Franco, who's going to be breaking down some key points to how to survive a relationship, how to dwell and thrive in marriages. So if this is something that you are interested in, I'm telling you, you do not want to miss it. Continue to watch, and also comment in the comment section down below and let us know your thoughts. We want to know what you think about this episode. If you like episodes like this, if you can relate to anything that's going on in this story, we want to hear it all. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Now let's get back to the episode. So that leads me to this, right? So as a man, you obviously have to make the step and say, you know what, like, I'm ready for this thing. For men, long-term commitment can be a thing like that we shy away from. What was it about Lyn that made you say, you know what, I'm ready to go all in, whether I think I'm ready or not. But at the moment, I feel like I'm ready to go all in with this woman and ask her to be my wife. Like, what was it? Like, what made you make that step?
You know, that's such a big question. That's a broad question, because, the idea of being ready, because back when I met Lyn, if I, and being honest, and I think this whole conversation here is about being honest, because back then when I met Lyn, I was in love with the idea of marriage, because for me, grew up in a church and all this. I knew this is one thing I knew for sure. I would not have a relationship outside of marriage. I didn't like that whole idea, right? So I know definitely having a relationship has got to be in the confinement of marriage, right? But was I ready for marriage? Was I prepared for marriage? I'm going to say no. I at that time when I met her, I saw this incredible person. She was smart. She was intelligent.
I still am.
Absolutely, 100%. And for most of us men, we our eyes, we are moved by what we see. Right. And so I saw this incredible woman. She's got everything, her beauty and yes, I was attracted to her. I liked the way she looked, how she walked, how she carried herself. And I thought, yes, this was someone that I think I can spend my life with. But the truth is, would I need, or could I have needed more time in preparing my work in the field first, and then build my house? Absolutely, 100%. And looking back now, I go, yeah, you weren't even, dude, you were not ready. You were not ready. You were not ready.
And okay, so they say marriages, you'll know in the first 5 to 7 years how it's going, right? Could you explain the first 5 to 7 years of marriage for you guys? Like, what did that look like? So from college leading up to the marriage, how was that journey? And then from year 1 to about year 7, 5, like, what did that look like?
Well, I'll tell you one thing, like even the night before marriage, it was hard, The night before we got married, it was hard because, we were actually traveling down to see, have a conversation with our respective spiritual leader. Yeah. And even in that journey was difficult. And because she was saying, this is not for me. I don't want to marry you, right? And so, and you know what? I think, and looking back now, I wish I had paid attention. I had listened carefully, right? Because what would that mean for me? Does that mean that I would be out of a potential wife? Possible, but the idea, when we talk about love, and because love is having that profound connection with each other. And, the Bible talks about in Corinthians about love is patient, kind, wonderful, and not seeking its own, And if I was functioning truly in love, then I would be willing to listen to what she was saying. Yeah. But I wasn't. Because the truth is, I was in a relationship prior to about 2 years before I met Lyn, right? And so and this, for lack of better words, she kind of dumped me. we gotta walk through that, guys. She dumped me. She pretty much told me that
she was leaving you for.
Yeah, exactly. I really wasn't enough. And so here's the thing, because I wasn't physically enough, so she said to join a gym. So I went in the gym and pumping the line, trying to get the muscles and whatever to meet this criteria of being a man.
Yeah.
In her perspective. And then she eventually says, you know what? No, and how that whole thing fell apart was just very painful and very hurtful. Mm-hmm. So the idea of now Lyn saying to me, listen now, I don't want to marry you, brings back this old rejection process to me, and the shame of it that came about with that is like, oh, snap, here's another situation where you've been dumped on and rejected. And so I'm not willing to listen to her saying, you know,
he just won't get married.
This is how I'm feeling. This is, whether it be some sign that she may see in me, that she is saying, you know what, listen, I want to be cautious. I'm not so sure. That's concern for me, whatever. But I wasn't paying attention to all that because I was determined to get what I wanted.
Right, right.
Today we're out here celebrating Black love, Black unity, Black excellence, and Black power. So right now we're having our Black unity shoot where our Black kings.
Hey Dean, look, I can't even believe I'm about to say this right now, but I just can't take it anymore. Darnell and I haven't been on good terms for a really long time now, and I honestly just can't take it. Our marriage is dying, and we're in need of some real support, like from Black and married couples, you know? I know we're not the only ones that would benefit from this. You gotta do something, because there is a real need. We need this.
Studies show that over the last few decades, marriage has been a declining institution within the Black community. In 2020, only 30% of all African Americans were married, compared to the 48% of all Americans.
As a result of the pandemic, many couples were faced with the strenuous challenge of having to spend countless hours in isolation with their partner. This for many was not only difficult, but caused tension which could have been avoided with the support of a healthy community.
We often devalue the importance of a healthy community and the accountability that comes with it, without realizing that it is one of the key secrets to the success of a healthy marriage. So I ask you, why do marriage alone when you could be a part of a community like this?
At Black and Married, we've created a space where couples can connect, communicate, and collaborate.
Couples can also find community, build lifelong friendships, and gain a source of support. A place where your voice and story will be heard. So again, I ask, why do marriage alone when you could be a part of a community like this? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Black and Married. Black and Married.
Okay, so I feel like there's a lot to unpack here, and I want to pull it back to the previous comment that you made before, saying that you guys were pretty much just married for 1 year. What was that? Like, what did you mean by that? And then, Lyn, I have another question for you too. What was it about marriage that you didn't want to be married? Like, why didn't you want that whole idea of being married?
I think there was so many, there were so many things that were going on. Again, there was... when I met Alton, I was in college still. I had an idea of what I wanted. I wanted like a house. Like there are certain things that I had for myself. And when Alton came along, we were really good at conversations. I think that's probably what kept us for 30 years, that we were good talkers. And when I say that, I just meant that however difficult a situation was, we were able to talk. Even if we didn't get full understanding, we were still able to talk. And so when he came along, there were things that I saw that I didn't think that, we were ready. And he had ended a relationship, and I was in a relationship that I wasn't sure if this person was going to marry me or not. And so my focus was really on that. But again, because we were in an unhealthy environment, the declaration came from the pulpit that we must get married. So there was this confusion as to our own personal traumas that we were experiencing, me trying to get affirmation from this relationship that I'm not sure of, him dealing with the rejection of the relationship that he just walked away from. And then now God is saying we have to get married from the pulpit. And I thought to myself, this is a little cray. A little cray.
So that's something that where I feel the church really dropped the ball. I wouldn't say the church. People who were in leadership position at the churches dropped the ball. Me personally, I know relationships that happened, marriages that happened based on someone said they had a dream, and the relationship went over 20 years, and they both hated each other for the 20 years, and finally got the courage to say, you know what, I'm done. But like what that did was so much damage, and if there was wise counsel, a lot of those mistakes would have been able to be caught before it blew up and exploded, right? So how did you feel when those words were said over you? Like, you must marry this individual.
My takeaway is God didn't like me.
Yeah.
Wow. You know, and it had nothing to do with Alton.
Yeah.
It was really, this is against my will. You know, and, you know, coming from my own personal trauma growing up, it just felt like authority. God felt like a bully on a throne, not understanding the complexity of humanity. And so I was really, really, really angry. But there was a part of me that's like, I don't want to disobey God. Right. And so I'll marry him because God said. But my heart
wasn't there.
It wasn't there. And I think, you know, if I could just pause for a moment, and for people that are in those kind of dynamics, it's really, really important that we, that you seek counsel, because it's not that our relationship wasn't meant to be something beautiful. It's just that we had all these interruptions that kept interrupting the covenant of marriage. And when you are not focused on a covenant and you're making other agreements outside of it, of course, your chances of survival, just think of a contract. You know, you have one contract that you sign for, and then from that contract, you're now making agreements with other contractors on the one contract.
Yeah.
Like, there's all kind of legalities. Right? And it was the same thing. Like, marriage is a covenant. It's an agreement that you make with God and each other. And so if there is not a clarity on the conditions, the pre-existing conditions, the conditions, and the commitment that you're willing to commit to, then you're really setting yourself up for failure. I also think that we have this delusional idea that marriage is all about mush. And marriage is only defined by a happy feeling. You know, like when we really read that scripture in Corinthians that talks about love, love is kind. Like, those are human experiences. So we don't have to be like, ooh, I fell into his eyes, like, you know, Scarlett O'Hara kind of thing. But it's honoring. You know, so even in difficult places, I'm not talking about places where you're being abused or anything like that, but even in challenging relationships, if you get back to the basic of how can I honor this man that is created in the image and likeness of God? How can I be kind to him? What if I was called to be the usher in his life? How will I demonstrate that? Do I have to be like madly in love, or can I start from a place of honoring? And so for me, you know, that's when like the shift happened, but it took a lot of work. And
it's funny that you say that, because I think that's when a shift happened in our marriage, when I was so used to, man, I'm going to do this because if I do this, then she'll be good. And, you know, if I get the money, if I do this, all that stuff, I'll do this for her and whatever. It was more so about building me so she will be all right. When we began to focus on serving each other, everything switched. So it's funny, first 3 years of our marriage, we were just like, yeah, man, so walk in the park, man. Nothing was happening. Everything was going happy-go-lucky. Then crisis came. And that's when we really had to look into ourselves, like, all right, how are we going to get through this? And that was the hardest season of my life, because I had to deal with me. Like, normally it's just like, I used to go through life like I was never the problem. until I had to realize, okay, I am a problem. And if I see myself as a problem, it's giving me a better chance to fix certain things, right? And when I began to see that, I was like, oh my God, what have I been doing for the last 3 years, right? And we've been working on it, and it got better.
Yeah. So it's like what you said. People think that relationships and marriage is all about that like fluff and lovey-dovey stuff, which it was for us in the beginning. But like you said, when crisis hit, it kind of just like threw us left. And it was the first time we ever had to like take in our situation, take in our surroundings. And actually, I don't like that you do this. I don't love that thing. So how could we work together to make this thing be better for us? And it's been working well. And I wanted to touch on the part about having that healthy communication. That's something like I'm really learning, and it's so important. I can't even stress it enough. Communication is key to everything. And so I'm happy you said that. But Alton, I want to go back to the part about when God said, you know, she should marry you and vice versa. How did her not feeling like you were enough make you feel with that statement being at hand?
Okay, so are we talking about the first relationship or
no?
So with you too.
Okay,
because she's not welcome at this table.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, you know what? Okay, so so driving down, like I said, you know, and Dean, you talked about, you know, that first year with you guys, you know, and that's fantastic for us. Right off the bat, it was just chaos. You know, we just went one, and it just seems like it was a systematic thing. Just 1 year, we couldn't figure out, you know, we on paper to say we had a solid year where there was nothing that popped up, you know. But going back to that night when we went to have that meeting and have this conversation with this, you know, our spiritual leader or pastor at the time, and she says, you know, I feel that, you know, this is God's will for you, Lyn, to marry Alton. And for a guy that just came out of a relationship that there was the pain of rejection, and now having at the brink of having another relationship that's gonna go south on you, and to hear this spiritual leader saying, you know what, yeah, I think this is the will of God for her to marry you. Of course, yeah, you know, it's a relief that, hey, I'm not gonna be rejected, you know, and so I will get what I want, or so I think, right? But not taking into consideration what she was going through.
Right.
Yeah. And I think looking back now, it hurts, because I'm going, yes, you know, the idea that I wouldn't get what I wanted that night, but at least, you know, we would walk away. Maybe she needed time. Maybe she just needed some time to figure out in her head what exactly she was going to get herself involved, right? But then that would allow us to put things in perspective, and our relationship with each other, where we wanted to, because there was a lot of things that was going on in my life, that, and the whole idea of being honest again, that I say, guys, you can never, this has got to be the foundational thing. Let that be. Don't hold back. Whatever is going on in your life, just bring it on out, you know, man.
With help.
Yeah, with help, right? Because I think that will create a healthy foundation for a stronger relationship. Yeah. And I can't emphasize that more. Just be honest. So, yeah, hearing that statement coming from my spiritual leader, our spiritual leader, it's an affirmation to me. It felt good, but at the same time, she says, okay. But, you know, someone once says that a person that is convinced against their own will is never convinced at all. And so she was never convinced that I was the one. But under duress, she made that decision. And that was painful. And I think going back, you know, over the years, and I look back and we go through all the things that we go through. And I think now we'll probably talk about how we get here, but now we're here, and I'm looking back and I'm going, man, I should have just walked away. You know, I should have been strong enough to say, okay, you're not ready. Yeah, it hurts, but yeah.
Could you tell us about a time where you had to navigate some challenges between the two of you and then somehow find the strength and the courage to rebuild that trust and partnership that you had between each other?
Yeah, listen, I started a business, and talking about it kind of, get a little bit emotional about it, with the effort of providing. I didn't properly cross my T's and dot my I's.
Okay.
I didn't do my groundwork. We talked about earlier about, the scripture, prepare your work outside and do all that kind of stuff. I didn't do it. And so it cost us a tremendous amount of money. We end up financially, as a place bankrupt. Yeah. We had to do bankruptcy. It was painful, and the shame of it too.
Yeah.
And so, but I think about it now, how painful and hurtful this was to her. I never asked her. I never came to her and says, there are some things that looking back now, I could have gone to her and said, okay, listen, I'm planning to do this, can you oversee this? I thought, and perhaps maybe it's a sign of pride. Maybe it was the fact that in my, sometimes we men thought, you got to man up and do things and show yourself to be a man. And so going out there and doing these things, but, and it would have worked if I had taken the time to, maybe even if it wasn't from her, but seek someone who was financially stable enough, like an accountant, whatever, but I didn't. And so it cost us a lot. And that hurt her. But she had to learn to forgive me.
I want to touch on that because we also,
similar.
I lost a lot of money 2 years ago, like almost everything, like literally everything. I had, as a man, I didn't know how to like really communicate with Nikki when it first happened because I was just so focused on how in the world am I going to get it back. I didn't even worry about like how she was feeling at the time. And it wasn't until later I was like, all right, I still have a family here and a home that I have to be present in, right? I feel like when men lose financially, it drove me to a place where I'm not gonna lie, well, people know it, I almost jumped. Like I would be driving and I was just like, man, if I just take this car and just tape over this bridge right now, because I associated the money with my identity. And that was detrimental. And I feel like if we were open, but there were some things I was feeling on the inside that I never told her until we started talking on the podcast. And if I had like maybe talked with her before I got all the way there, thinking maybe I should just jump, maybe things would have been different. But yeah, it hurt. And I want to know for you, how did you feel when he made the bad business decision? Like how did you feel, and what was the result of that decision? How did you react to that decision?
Well, the thing about it is that my background is financial planning. And so when a lot of these, I would try to have conversations with him as I saw things unfold in. And what I would say, and I would give people language for this, you are in a partnership, right? And a partnership means that whatever decisions that are being made, especially the big decisions, it is actually dishonest not to share it with your partner. Right? It's if you even look into the legality of partnership agreements, like it's partnership, the word means is that there are more than one person operating this. Whether the percentage is 70-30 or 90-10, as long as a business is registered as partnership, two people are making a decision. The percentage doesn't really hold weight except for when you're going to purchase and you need the weight of the one. But the agreement, the title of partnership means that it requires two people. And so for couples, whatever decisions that you're making, partnership, You got to come together and have the conversations. So I would try to prevent some of these things. I think one of the offerings that I had made early is when I saw that he was passionate about the business. I thought, okay, this is his love. Like, he's excited about this. We had a bigger house at the time. And I said, let's downsize, get something smaller. And then that way I can be fully devoted to the things in our house, and he can fully be devoted to his partner, his business. Then that way it takes the strain off when the business is not working, when funds are not coming in, we're hustling, right? We're preparing ourselves for the hustling part, the part that you need to go, oh, Lord Jesus, we need $5, right? But he wasn't listening. And that's that. So when it came and it happened, I found out.
Oh, okay.
I found out, right?
So it wasn't that I told her; she found out, and even and I want to expose a line in my head, because even though I knew that when the bill comes and she sees a credit card, that hell is gonna break loose, but yet. For me, I guess, and it didn't make sense now, but you're thinking, oh, I'd rather deal with that now than, because telling her she's going to be mad. But either way, the whole idea is that what I was doing was wrong, but the way she found out even made it worse, because I could have gone to her and says, listen, I made some decision, and you're going to find out the bill is going to come and this is what's happening. But I didn't, because whether it was fear or shame, whatever that was, but it kept me in a place of being dishonest and cost me tremendous pain.
I want to talk about courage in that, though, because I think courage is really what makes the difference. Right. And I think I had someone say to me one time when we had children, we talk about, especially in the Black community, we talk about, like our young girls having babies and they went through a plethora of things that are devastating to, a parent. And this little lady said to me, the worst thing that can happen to you is that you bury your child. Everything else you can work through.
Yeah.
Wow. Do you know? Yeah. And that was a really turning point in my perspective on a lot of things. And I think the courage was really putting down, or not even putting down, but walking with the baggage of your shame and your guilt and your fear, and coming to the table and saying, I made some decisions that weren't the best. And how do we move on from here? All
right. So I want to get transparent. We said the worst thing that could happen is burying a child, right? What were some of the worst or the worst things you guys had to go through as a married couple, and how did you navigate in that season and see yourself come out of that season for better?
We lost a lot of days.
Okay, so I think. And, it's funny because it's not funny, but looking back now, there were so many things, because even in the craziness of her not wanting to marry me originally, but yet we did it anyways. And so here we are. She's not totally committed to this, because this is not what her heart was saying to do. Yeah. And I totally get that now. And understand that. And here I was trying to make her see that she made the right decision, but yet I wasn't doing all the right things,
right?
And so we're trying so many different things, having a baby, having children. We end up having how many miscarriages? 5 miscarriages, and how many ectopic pregnancies?
We had 1 ectopic.
Right. And so carrying the pain of that, and she can speak even more about that, but as the husband, and it was hard, and then so that was one thing, and then the financial situation, that was another thing that we had to navigate through, and
Yeah, it was rough for a hot minute.
Talk to me, Lyn.
It was rough for a hot minute.
Talk to me.
You know, we were trying. Listen, when we got into this marriage thing, we decided, as difficult as we were, still going to try our best. And I think one of the things that we can see now is that we were really for each other, but we just didn't have the language to speak to each other.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because we were all both in the FBI business. We were just trying to cover up our stuff.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, as long as I clean up and I cover up and I come inside, it's all, but there's some core things that are interfering or interrupting the marriage life individually and as a couple. So I think for me, the marriage was one thing. Then we had, 5 pregnancy loss. And for 9 years, we couldn't have children. And in church culture, in Black culture, people come up with things like, girl, I have some bush, because me here not lucky. And like just these different things. And it was just like so many, you were just being dissected. It seems like I'm not a woman because I can't give birth. I'm not a wife because he keeps repeating stuff. I'm not enough, which again speaks to like your own personal trauma. So you're triggered and reliving and triggered and reliving. So for us, it was really when we had our first daughter, which we were happy. We were like, finally, God, who was it in the Bible? Hagar, that talked about God sees me when she had left Sarai after she had become pregnant with Ishmael. And so we were like, finally, he is the God that sees us. And we gave birth to our daughter in July. And I was rushed to the hospital 2 months later. 3 months later, I found out I had thyroid cancer. Wow. 2 months after that, I had to do radiation. Then 3 months after the radiation, we found out I had infertility problems, so I didn't think I could get pregnant. We got pregnant with our second daughter. Wow. And both the oncologist and the endocrinologist said, you need to terminate this pregnancy because you still have radioactive material in your body, and this child is going to be born with deformities. So, and the interesting thing about that, I just went deaf. I walked out the oncologist's office. I didn't even tell him. He did not find out that they had asked me to terminate our second daughter until her 8th birthday. Wow. We were having a celebration and all of a sudden it's like, God is so good. I remember when the doctors told me, and he looked at me, he goes, I didn't tell you that.
Oh no.
Because it's just like, we had enough that I was just going to take that and throw that in the sea of forgetfulness. Yeah. And to God be the glory, we had a healthy baby who is in university right now. Amazing. But just those were some of the things, it was knowing that God was still seeing us in the middle of the mess.
Wow. Okay. So you just dropped a bomb on us. You went through having cancer.
Yeah.
What was that season like? Was it scary for you, Alton?
Yeah. So the first time, that thyroid cancer, that was just after our first child was born, Hannah. And that was scary because here I was, I remember just before she went into the hospital, she, developed this lump in her neck. And I remember during pregnancy, going to our family doctor, and he had great concerns about it. But he goes, listen, you are high-risk pregnancy, so we're not going to do anything about it. We're just going to let it go, watch it. And after the delivery of the child, then we will go in and see what's happening. And so, when we found that out, that was difficult. Just so many emotions that are going through your mind. Here you are. I'm now with a brand new baby. My workplace was kind enough. I remember the owner president at the time came to me and he says, listen, what do you need from us? And I said, all I need right now is time. And he says, you got it. So I was on probably for about 2 months just with this baby, brand new baby. And, so during the day I would, solicit help from family members to
all the teachers that were off in the summer.
To go while I go and visit Lyn in the hospital, and then in the night it was just me and this young baby. So, were there so many emotions of, will she be okay? Am I gonna lose her? Absolutely, 100%.
And then in that season, was everything all right with you guys? Were you guys on good terms?
Yeah, we were like good, like chicken and chips, as they say in Trinidad.
So how did you feel in that process, Lyn?
I am one of those people where I am like, give me the stats, give me the process, tell me how many steps I got to take, and let's get this thing over with. So for me, it was scary. But I just had this baby that I waited 8 years for. Yeah. So I was like, get me better tomorrow, guys. I need to get out of here. Like, I don't even have time for that. Do you know how much time the oncologist used to come and say, hello, sorry, because I was so enamored with having a baby that it was like, I think it was a blur. It became a blur, but it was scary. It was really a scary time, but the other side of it is we also had a great community. Can I just sit for a moment? Can we linger in the importance of a good community?
Yeah, it's everything.
Listen, the villagers in our community would take our baby and watch her for weeks. They would drop off food. They would like things that you don't imagine or you can't even ask for. They had already had a list of things that they were going to do. And community also invested in us. When we saw people were more interested in our own marriage than we were like, this is something special. And so there was a lot of tides that were turning in the middle of the turmoil that God was using people to pour back into and restore the hope of marriage.
That's scary because I cannot imagine the thought of losing Nicky. Like that to me is crazy. I honestly don't know what I would do. You guys said it's been 29 going on 30 years, right? You said 28 years was rocky, and you said you would go back to the 1 year. Like this 1 year, everything was kind of like made the 28 years worthwhile, kind of.
You know, and I think what I meant by that is that now we're going on to 30 years. But for me, every additional year, I subtract 29, or if next year it's going to be 30, and I'm going to subtract 29.
So it's another year. Okay, so it's year.
So I'm always going to be at the first year, number one, because for me, I'm still growing and learning all the many incredible things about her.
All right.
And so I'm not one of those guys who will say, well, 30 years, I think I know it all. Because you know what? No. I am just getting to learn. Because I'm paying attention. I'm learning to pay attention to the things that fill her love tank.
So can you give us some insight on what the process was towards choosing love and marriage and staying committed and happily married to each other?
First, we sought counsel.
Yeah.
We were in therapy individually, right? Because we have our own issues, our own personal issues, our own trauma, and even if we don't have like the big traumas, we have things that get in the way of seeing people the way God sees them. Right. And wise counsel really helped me individually and Alton, and then we did couples counseling.
Okay.
And one of the things I would strongly recommend in couples counseling, you do it before you get married. You do it after you get married, and you do it during the course of being married, because what it teaches us is about hearing, right? Not hearing to respond, but listening, lingering in the emotion and the feeling of the other person. And it's almost as like the therapist puts a lid on your mouth and then they reflect back what your partner is saying. And then you would sink in the chair and you'd go, oh, Jesus, I didn't hear that. So you really get to see the mirror of who the person is. And then there's a kindness that shows up in that. So I would say counseling was our biggest, it was the tool that God gave to us to not only restore love and goodness and kindness, but to honor marriage the way God sees it. You know, when God talks about preparing the bride, and he talks about the stains, and he talks about all the things, we know that there's some complexities to it. We know there's going to be some hardness in it. But I think when you start to see it the way God sees it, through wise counsel and, this your communication, the language, we have a thing when things are going off course. So he would say something to me and I would be in a bit of a mood and going, what he mean? And instead of like internalizing, I would say,
expose the lie
in my head.
Right?
Yeah. So for example,
you were sitting eating something and I asked you if you were eating and she goes, yeah. And
I'm a little spicy sometimes when I respond.
But she was concerned that I was talking about weight or something like that.
Yeah, I thought he was taking a jab at my weight.
And
yeah.
But my intention was to say, okay, you know what, I could have some of that too.
Me.
I could join that. But it didn't quite came out that way. And so she heard it a different way. And so later on in the night, I went upstairs and she had just, settled down. And I said, okay, I want to expose a lie in my head. Did you think this way when I asked you that question? And she says, yes, I did. I thought you were making reference to and I said, you know what? No, I didn't. That was not my intention, but this was my intention. And so right there, we kind of just cleared the atmosphere that nothing else can build from that, whether in her mind or in mine, because
we shut it down.
We shut it down right there. So you're learning these things, and you're learning to do things this September, and I did something that I've never done before. And because I planned a birthday party for her, and it was probably about 20, almost 30 people, but I was careful enough to choose people in her circle that meant the world to her. Okay. It was very, part of that process too was kind of concerning because I realized I was taking people from her world, different parts of her world, and bringing them into one place. And so, but it worked out. It's touched her, and that says that I was listening. I'm concerned more. It wasn't about me. It was all about her.
Right. So is there a moment in your relationship, in your marriage, where you could say that this was the reassuring thing that happened that reminded you as to why you got married and why this is right and why this works? And in addition to that, what is something that you would share with a couple who may be going through a hard time or having similar experiences?
I think for us, when we realize in our marriage how good of a friendship we had, I think that was really the juiciness for us, because we can literally sit at the fire pit and we can talk for hours and laugh and joke and really enjoy each other's company. And we don't have any kind of like agenda in the conversation other than to good friend talk. You know what I mean? Like, when, for guys, when they have their guy talks, and girls, when they go, we have this really good ability to have great conversations. And I think that's really what is the strength of our marriage, that we can sit and talk for hours about everything. We have learned to really not take everything personal. It is not always about and then the kindness. I think sometimes we are so focused on the loveness that we don't realize how kindness is really a comfort in relationships. And so if I was to say anything to a couple that is really struggling right now, is find a way to talk. You know, for me, Alton knows I have 2 love languages. It's coffee in the morning or a glass of wine in the afternoon by the fire pit. If you want to get anything from me, set an atmosphere with those 2 things.
I love that.
And I will talk until Jesus comes. Do you know what I mean? And so it's finding out the little things about your partner that you can sort of tune into. Like when he threw me the birthday party, if I had any wind that he was throwing me a birthday party, I would have take it over. Yeah. And it would have been, but he did such an incredible job. And I thought, that party wasn't even so much about the party. It was about him listening and noticing. And so I think sometimes we make relationship things about big things like, I got to buy the house or I got to buy, but it's the small things. Yeah. It's like, you know, my wife or my husband likes a cup of coffee. My husband likes, you know, a good meal. I'm invested in cooking. It's the little things that causes the marriage to stay together. The big things, you can work those out. But I would say for a struggling couple, try and find the little things about each other that would make a huge difference, because it's the little things. Do you know what I mean? What would you say?
And for guys, I would say, listen, don't be afraid for those hard conversations.
Yeah.
Because those are actually very important, you know? Sometimes it makes us uncomfortable because it takes us to places that we don't necessarily want to go because they're triggering, because, you know, we're products of our environment and sometimes we're carrying things. And listen, I am big on therapy. And for guys,
yes, black guy,
I'm going to tell you, listen,
I hear you, man.
You know, there's no shame in doing therapy. Find a therapist. Get in there, because you know we as men we don't share. We locked our emotions, and we will carry them, our pain, our hurt, and you know, and here's the thing, because that pain and that hurt will show up, and it sometimes end up showing up in relationship. We lashes out. And so, you know, I'll say, get some therapy. Talk to somebody. You know, I'm believing Jesus in therapy. You know,
Amen.
So that is absolutely important. So don't be afraid of those hard conversations. Be open. Yeah, when you're having those hard conversations with your spouses and she wants to go here, don't shy away from it. You know, it's very important that you go there,
right,
and have those conversations.
All right, so my last thing, it's a question. I ask every single married couple this question. If there's one thing you could apologize to each other for, what would that one thing be and why?
Listen, I think we're here now, and this is wonderful. We're enjoying our relationship, our family. I'm learning more and more the many incredible things about her, and that's wonderful. And but if I had to go back and apologize, would be apologize first for her feel a sense of being pressured to marry when she didn't. I think that took away something very dear from her. You know, the fact that she didn't felt that she had a choice. And when your sense of choice is taken away from you, that's not a good place to be. So I would go back and apologize for that, to say, listen, I am sorry that you felt just so pressured and not having the ability to make your own choice, you know, and then, you know, just the mistakes of even financial mistakes that, you know, that robbed our family of so many things because I didn't listen. I wasn't hearing you. I didn't hear. I would go back and say, listen, I am sorry. I'm sorry for that.
Wow. I love that, man. I love that. Like, Lyn, if there's one thing you could say sorry for, what would that be and why?
I think for me, I would apologize trying to be a woman and tell a man to be a man. I think for me, I had my own versions of what a man was, but the truth is that I wasn't a man. And so I needed to give him the space to feel that out, right, to know what that means to him, not even according to how we define manhood, but according to the design that God had for him, that I would have gotten out of the way of his image and likeness of God, trying to create it for me. So I would apologize for trying to interfere what God had already saw and knew was good, and would have allowed him to just live according to purpose. In the book of Genesis, it says that when God was finished and he looked at man, he said it was good. So there was nothing wrong with him. And I think me assuming that everything is wrong with him was the problem. So I would apologize for interrupting what God had already called good and trying to redefine it to something that I wasn't.
You mentioned the word purpose, and I've been chasing that more than ever before. I believe that everyone has a God-given assignment here on earth, and it must be fulfilled. And I was going to end it, but how would you correlate purpose and your marriage? Like, what does that look like for you?
For me, I'm going to go back to the basics on that one. I take so much pride in creating a home that whatever is going on outside, when you come in, it's the safest place on earth.
Hey, that's it right there.
Do you know?
You don't have to say another word.
Cooking a meal.
Yep.
Cleaning the house. Yep. Getting things in place and in order so that whatever chaos is outside, when you get inside, you can find the milk. You can have a meal on the table. You can sit on the couch. I even go to as far as the aroma in the house. I have more scented candles than the Bad Body, whatever store the Bath store is, works. Right?
Yeah, I know it.
Because I just think that of all the things that I can do and be good and get accolades for, the best accolade for me is when my family comes home and feel like they belong in this space. So for me, it's there.
Love it.
That's purpose in marriage for me right there.
That's good.
I don't care about anything else. Right?
Alton, talk to me and we wrap this bad boy up.
That's good.
That's good.
It's funny she said that because a couple of weeks ago, and it was a Thursday, and I walked in the house and, I can smell the food. And, and so I walked in, there was a beautiful, delicious pot of soup. But she wasn't home. She went to get our son. But there was a podcast with Bishop Jakes. But it was just the idea that there was this aroma of sweet smelling food, and then there was this presence, that was just in the. And I walked in, and we have a dog. Yeah. And so she walked in just then, a few minutes with our son, and and the dog was crying and doing all that thing, but I was irritated with the fact that this dog was carrying on, interrupting this flow that I sense. And I thought, and she walked in and I go, this is amazing. So, but I think my purpose is, and I love the fact that she feels complete, and the idea that she feels safe. I love that, and I think my purpose is always to make sure that I let her know that she is safe. As a woman, as God's child, as my wife, as my children's mother, I want her to know that she's loved and that she is safe. And so I think that's my purpose in making sure, in working, and her function in the ministry. And for me, she's a beautiful wife and mother. She cooks well, but to me, there is so much more to her than that. And so not only in me creating that space of safety, but allow her to be able to, the freedom to, if God is taking her, whatever ministry that is, to do it, and not being bogged down to be a cook or this, but to know that she fills the space of God's destiny.
And that's that. Alton, you just got yourself some brownie points.
Hello.
You got yourself some brownie points.
Hello.
But honestly, guys, I just want to say thank you guys for this.
Yes.
This conversation was major, impactful. There's so many things that people are going to be able to take away from this conversation and from you guys' lives, man. You guys' testimony, it's amazing that you're still standing. Like, you are still here. And it's only by the grace of God.
And we like each other.
Right? And that's it.
Don't leave me hanging.
And that's it.
No one gets to almost 3 decades of marriage with smooth sailing.
Yeah.
There's going to be problems. When you're trying to navigate this whole marriage journey, you have to remember that you're on the same team. Right. You're not fighting against each other. It's not one person against the other. You're actually fighting for each other.
All right, welcome back to the podcast, guys. We are so excited. We have a very special guest with us today, Roxanne Francis, and she's going to be breaking down everything we just heard in the previous conversation. So, Roxanne, talk to me. What are some takeaways that you got from that conversation?
Yeah, no one gets to almost 3 decades of marriage with smooth sailing.
Yep.
There's going to be problems. Life is really up and down with health, with fertility challenges, openness and vulnerability, and it takes honesty. And I was just thinking, just hearing, this couple talk about things like honesty. And I was just thinking to myself that sometimes in couples, what gets in the way of honesty are things like not feeling good enough, shame, grief, feeling like you'll be rejected. And so people are fearful of being completely honest, but a long-lasting marriage is going to require honesty, right? And I love that they have come together. When you're trying to navigate this whole marriage journey, you have to remember that you're on the same team.
Right.
Yep.
Right? You're not fighting against each other. It's not one person against the other. You're actually fighting for each other, right? And remembering that you're on the same team, remembering that the person that you've promised your life to, they love you, right? And so being open and being honest, it's a process, but it's worth it in the long run.
Wow. So if I can ask you a question, if there was one thing you would tell couples that are, going through the storm in their relationship, what's one thing that they can implement to see some positive change in their relationship?
Dependence on each other. A lot of times when people come into marriages, it's like, I have this strength and, the other person says, I have this strength. And what we need to do is turn those strengths towards each other, right? So lean into the strength of the other person so that they have the opportunity to show that they have your back, right? When things get really, really difficult, it's easy to say, well, I can do this. I'm strong. But the strength of the unit is what we're looking for, right? So really lean into each other. Asking for help and asking for support is not a bad thing. It's actually going to help your marriage in the long run be stronger and last longer than you expect.
In that episode, we also heard that, Lyn and Alton were going through a season where they didn't communicate very well, and they were loving each other the wrong way. What's the importance of understanding your partner's love language and giving them the love how they want to receive it?
Yeah, that's really, really, really important. Understanding how the other person wants to be loved, understanding how they receive love, because oftentimes that can come from how people were raised, how they were parented, what they saw when they were growing up, what they saw between the adults in their home. And so understanding how someone can be triggered, understanding where someone's fears come from, and understanding how they want to receive love is ultimately of really, really great importance, because you could be pouring your heart out, giving someone love in a way that you would want to receive it, and it's not important to them. As I was listening to them talk, I was thinking to myself, it's so important to always be your spouse's student. So always learning. Always learning your spouse is really, really crucial.
And so they talked about the importance of doing therapy before they get married, while they're married, and throughout the whole process after. Yeah. So what are your takes on that? How do you feel about that?
Well, as a therapist myself.
Shameless plug.
Shameless plug.
For real.
I think it's important. Sometimes we come into marriage with lots of baggage. We come into marriage with stresses, with pains, thinking that we know how to navigate things when sometimes we're navigating from a place of hurt, right? And so having therapy or counseling before marriage can really unpack some of those expectations and lay a groundwork for how things are going to go. And also, counseling when you start, or counseling as you go, it helps to navigate some of the pain points that you have, some of the struggles that you have as a couple, and helps you to come together and see things from the same vantage point, right? So that you're not constantly hurting each other.
Fair.
All right. That was amazing. Before we wrap it up, though, I just want you to let the people know where they can find you. Let them know what you do, because you are a game changer. Right? Roxanne is a game changer. We're so happy to have you here today, but you cannot leave without letting people know where they can find you, and also what you can do, what you do for them, and how you can be beneficial to them, and also married couples out there.
Thank you so much for that. So I am a social worker and psychotherapist, and my team and I, we offer individual and couples counseling and counseling for children and teens for people all over the province of Ontario. And I have been doing this work now for about 16 years. And it is my joy to help people unpack and find their purpose again, and particularly for couples, to help them see each other with fresh eyes, so that they're no longer fighting against each other, but they're fighting for each other. And people can find me at francispsychotherapy.com. I'm also all over social media at Francis Psychotherapy.
That's it, guys. You heard it from the myth, the legend herself. You guys tap it. Make sure you connect with her. But guys, you guys already know, man, if there's one thing I'm challenging every listener out there to do, is to operate in purpose. Choose purpose over fear today. And you may ask why, and I will tell you, because there's an entire audience out there waiting on yes. So I challenge you just to say yes to whatever God has for you, and watch him do the rest. You already know what time it is. It's your boy Dean.
And your girl Nikki.
And we out. Peace.